This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, PYT Nation, Jeff Weatherford here. Welcome to the show. It's Monday, start of a brand new week of horrors. What awaits us over the next few days? Only time will tell. That's basically how every week is going, at least until, of course, we get rid of not only the coronavirus, but also the terrible mismanagement of government that we have right now. Which has been a complete and utter disaster. And hopefully we don't replace it with another complete and utter disaster. But that's a different story for a different time. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day. Mother's Day was yesterday. But I still want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. Those of you who are in the audience that are mothers. And, of course, to my own. Happy Mother's Day or late Mother's Day. Hopefully you all had an excellent day. I know it's difficult with the whole social distancing thing. I mean, that's one of the hardest parts about not only, holidays, but your birthdays and family get-togethers. You can't do that anymore. You have to do it over a Zoom call. And so it kind of sucks. I mean, but what are you going to do, right? You just have to, you do what you have to do. Or you could choose not to do it. And just show up to your local Subway with a rocket launcher, as some people are opting to do. I would rather not do that because I don't need to bring an RPG to my local Subway. I don't need to be doing that. Now you could be smart and be like, no, this isn't a rocket launcher. This is a sub launcher for Meal Team 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot some subs to my buddies across the state, way over there. Here's footlong. Hope you wanted that toasted. Yeah. All right. So I'm in a little bit of a ridiculous mood, but these are ridiculous times. So we'll have a little fun. Anyway, those of you who I guess care. I know I have a lot of gamers in my audience. So yesterday we did a Twitch stream. I just went and played some MMO for a while. And that was fun. I'll probably do it again because there's, a couple of people that stopped by, had some conversations. That's always fun. Oh, Bazooka. Sorry. Completely different. I don't know my heavy munitions, guys. Come on. Give me a break. So we did a Twitch stream, and hey, guess what? We're streaming now on Twitch as well. So that's cool. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. With no sub launcher. You guys are great in the comments, man. I always have a lot of fun reading those. So thank you. All right. So yeah, we're gonna start doing that. Going forward, we'll stream the normal show on Twitch, and then as well as YouTube, Facebook, So you can't get away from me. Like you can't get away from the stream. Like it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. You can't escape. So yeah. Find me on your different streaming social media sites. All right. What's next? Am I going to take over Instagram? I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Anyway, so look, we've got some fun stories. We're going to talk about Donald Trump and has COVID-19 reached the White House and what's going on there. We've got Nutters on Facebook getting fired. That's a fun story. Well, maybe not for him, but it's pretty interesting. We've also got farmers that are not too happy with with President Trump over his handling of COVID-19, especially when they were promised help. And then we also have an environmental story and the newest administration plan, Republican plan, to dismantle Social Security amid coronavirus. It's kind of a sick plan that we have going on here. And I'm going to give you the details. I'm going to tell you what they're trying to do and what they're naming it. So fun times for everybody. All right, so let's move on. Hold on here. Let's move on. Let's get to the first story here. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Important that you do so. Helps us out greatly. Yeah, that's it. Like and share. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. COVID-19 is beginning to spread around the Trump White House, with Trump's personal valets, yes, that's two of them, and Pence's press secretary, Katie Miller, both testing positive. Now, Katie Miller, of course, is the wife of Stephen Miller, which makes this COVID-19 diagnosis the second worst thing to have ever happened to her. Ouch. All right. Now, several senior White House officials are now worried, and they tell the New York Times, that it's too late. It could be too late to stop the virus from sweeping through the ranks of people at the White House. Now, that, of course, has President Trump apparently rattled. So he's not happy about this. So now at the White House, they actually have some rigorous testing going on, which kind of makes sense in the middle of a pandemic that you would have a lot of testing measures. In fact, you have old employees getting tested at least once a week, and those who come in close contact with Trump getting tested every single day. So yes, they are doing their job in protecting the president, which is kind of ironic for a president that says testing, not really necessary. Dude, we don't need the widespread testing. We don't need that. Everything will be fine. It'll be gone like poof, like magic, but without a vaccine. It'll just be gone one day. It'll just disappear like magic. Guy's a moron. Totally idiot. Total idiot. Dumb, so dumb. All right, anyway. So now Miller testing positive on Friday morning. This is after, of course, afterwards, Donald Trump went out and said, I was very disappointed. She tested negative for so long, and then suddenly now she tested positive. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. Because there's, you might not test positive for some time, right? Even while you are a carrier of COVID-19. So now, the thing about her is that she didn't wear a mask while working, according to the Times, and several staff members who were most likely in meetings with her before she tested positive are still coming into work. Trump be like, you coming into work, right? Don't worry about that whole coronavirus thing. It's fine. It's fine. Even though you were in meetings in an enclosed space. Dude, you know it's going around. Of course, it might only be a short time until the entire White House is infected. That includes the president. So now her husband, Trump advisor Stephen Miller, tested negative on Friday and is not expected to go into the White House anytime soon, according to people familiar with his plans. Stephen Miller's like, oh, my wife got it. And people in the White House got it. Guess where I'm not going to be? Around either of them. See you later. I'm gone. When Stephen Miller ducks out of the situation, like you know it's bad. It's bad. All right. Anyway, now Mike Pence. There's a little bit of confusion about what Mike Pence is going to do, or
Mike Pounds.
right, Mike Pounds. What's he going to do? What's our friend Mike going to do? Well, there were conflicting stories of him choosing to self-isolate after Katie Miller had had been tested positive. However, that is not the case. He actually is back to work on Monday. So, great. So he's back on Monday. And now, that's okay, though, because Pence is covered in the blood of Jesus. Okay, look, I was kidding about that last part. But yes, he's going back into work. Pence don't care. And in fact, in a recent meeting with 5 food industry CEOs, Pence's staff, before Pence came out, these fast foods, or these food industry CEOs were all wearing masks, right? He comes out there. I'm sorry, his staffer comes out there and says, before Mike comes out on stage, I'm going to need you to remove your masks. Take them off. And they, of course, did. They took them off. And then that's when Mike came out without a mask. Mike Pence, or again,
Mike Pounds,
is not only ignoring CDC's guidelines, he's literally making sure that anybody around him is not isn't following those guidelines either. Coronavirus couldn't ask for a better friend and ally than this science-denying evangelical lunatic. And right along with him, of course, is Donald Trump. Now, Trump also hasn't been wearing a mask. He's been ignoring CDC guidelines. He's been, meeting with people. According to the Times, one senior administration official said the fact that a valet who served him food tested positive had, quote, rattled Trump, and he was annoyed to find out that Miller had tested positive. He was, quote unquote, rattled and annoyed. Now, of course, we know Donald Trump's a germaphobe, but at the same time, only being annoyed and rattled, I mean, come on. Now, over the weekend, several press aides who have been coming into White House were told to start working remotely, and officials were urged to stay home if they believed that they're getting sick. One of Trump's top economic advisors, Kevin Hassett, admitted on CBS's Face the Nation that it was, quote, scary to go to work, as opposed to any other time. Quote from the article, he wears a mask, but said he thinks I'd be a lot safer if I was sitting at home than I would be going to the West Wing. It's a small, crowded place. It's, a little bit risky, but you have to do it because you have to serve your country. Now, my question is, I'm really curious about about what's going to happen if Donald Trump actually gets sick. Like if he comes down with coronavirus or tests positive, that's going to be interesting. But I think it's pretty clear. The sickness is in the White House. It's in the White House. It's only a matter of time. And I don't mean the sickness is Donald Trump. I mean the actual coronavirus. But here's the thing. I think, given what I've learned about Donald Trump over the last few years of covering him and really seeing how he reacts to things, right, and what he says, I think he believes he's immune. I mean, given the fact that he's, quote unquote, annoyed at his staff for getting sick, right? And not really taking any sort of protective measures. Because again, if you're a germaphobe, right, which Donald Trump admittedly is, you would be, you can imagine that he would be carrying around a 5-gallon drum of like hand sanitizer and like in the middle of a meeting just going anytime he gets near somebody, right? You would think, and then wearing a mask and probably like maybe a respirator, and an entire freaking suit. That's what you would expect from a germaphobe. Trump, though, nope, not doing any of that. Doesn't really care, and it says, it's kind of annoying that my people around me are getting sick. That sucks. But here's the thing, right? So he probably thinks that he's too good to get sick, that he's too good of a person, he's too virtuous to get sick. Oh, and if that's not necessarily the case, his genes, I got great genes. I got the most tremendous, the best genes. Maybe that's it. And and Pence probably thinks that, like, no, I'm too virtuous. I'm covered in the blood of Jesus. I mean, he is an evangelical moron. Not to say all evangelicals are morons, but Mike Pence just happens to be an evangelical and a moron. But if it hits Trump, by the way, if he actually does get sick, I mean, it's going to be karma. I'm not saying it, I hope it happens, but it could very well happen. And what's dangerous about what Trump is doing now is the fact that, again, he's not wearing a mask. Pence isn't wearing a mask. They're really downplaying the deadliness of this virus, to the, virality, and really sending a message to his followers and people around the country. This is not really all that serious, and you don't have to wear a mask. That is super dangerous, and you don't have to socially distance. In fact, we're gonna tell you to do otherwise, or we're gonna signal you that it's fine to do otherwise. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so, if he does get sick, I hope maybe it becomes a wake-up call. But as we've seen with the UK's Boris Johnson, yeah, it was for a short time, but then it's back to being who they really are. And that's sociopaths that don't actually care about people. All right. Moving on. All right. Apparently, when it goes around, comes around. A Dallas-based law firm administrative manager was fired after recently posting a crazed rant about shooting people who had asked him to wear a face mask. I mean, this is complete insanity. Courthouse News reports that former Thompson & Knight employee Kevin Bain drew attention on social media last week when he posted a threatening message against businesses that do not admit customers who don't wear face masks. So, this is in response, of course, to, I believe it was a Costco or a Whole Foods that decided, hey, look, if you're not wearing a face mask, we're not going to let you in because that puts us in danger. That puts us other customers in danger. We're not going to do that. So now Bain wrote this, quote, "No more masks," which is ironic from somebody named Bain. Batman joke. All right. And he said, "Any business that tells me to put on a mask, Whole Foods on Lomo Alto in Dallas, will get told to kiss my Corona ass and will lose my business forever." Is he admitting that he's going to get it? Like he believes that it's going to happen? I mean, why else would you describe it as a Corona ass? Just saying. So, but look, before I get into the threats and the crazy, I wouldn't be surprised to find out the same kind of person who thinks that bakeries should be able to discriminate against gay people by not baking them a cake. I'm just saying, people like, don't bake them homos a cake. Ask me to wear a mask? How dare you? I can't believe it. I mean, wearing a mask. Look, the irony here is it's only wearing a mask, right? Versus asking people to change the very core of their being, their sexuality, right? Or discriminating against them because they can't change who they are because, they're gay, right? One's asking for a cake and the other is saying, I want to have the right to spread my COVID all over the place. I'm just saying, ridiculous, right? Wearing a mask is such a really minor thing to do. You'd think they'd be asking for them to surrender their guns or something. And which we've seen in a lot of states, they haven't been doing so. In fact, there are people carrying around, assault-style weapons out there protesting, long guns, bazookas at Subway. I mean, the people are doing some pretty ridiculous things, and nobody's going after them for it. But, if they ask you to put on a mask, well, that's enough. Apparently, it's enough to get people killed. And so, this happened at what was it, a Family Dollar or Dollar General or something like that in Flint, where somebody came back and murdered a security guard for telling someone to put a face mask on. Absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, Bain then proceeded to, of course, make some direct threats. He said, "It's time to stop the BS. Do I have to show the lame security outside of a ghetto store my CV-19 test result? I will show him my Glock 21 shooting range results with Hornady hollow points, pricey ammo, but worth it in this situation. They have reached the limit. I have more power than they do. They just don't know it yet." These are the threats against a store, right? That just wants to protect not only its workers, but other customers. And this guy's like so angry at being inconvenienced temporarily because, oh my God, you actually have to think about somebody other than yourself. How dare you ask me to think about other people and temporarily inconvenience me? No, I can't. Unacceptable. I mean, it's ridiculous. That said, here's the thing. I think the real reason that these people don't want to wear masks and protect other people is because they're afraid of being unmanned. I mean, look, let's be honest, right? I don't think a lot of people are talking about the problem of men considering themselves weak for following medical advice and actually listening to science and doing things to not only protect themselves, but to protect other people. It's sort of a form of toxic masculinity. Masculinity itself is not toxic, but there is toxic masculinity. It's where you don't take medical advice, even though it's healthier for you and for everyone around you. And it's where you do things that, don't make any sense, but make you feel like you're manly. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I mean, for them, wearing masks is for weak, fearful, girly men. Real men get COVID and 19 and die. I mean, look, that's why you see a lot of this on the right. That's why you see people out there with their guns, right? It's not about freedom for most of these guys. No. See, that's why this guy is flipping out. He doesn't want to be perceived as weak for wearing a mask and looking out for someone else. And more importantly, I think being told what to do by someone else. Now, how dare you tell me what to do? I dare you tell me what to wear a mask. I don't want to wear a mask. No, that's for girly weak men. No, I'm going to go and I'm going to strut around this store with my gun and my COVID. I'm going to breathe on everybody. I mean, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, look, at the same time, I don't like being told what to do. That's why I work for myself, right? I kind of hate it, but I do understand. It's because I don't have a goddamn baby brain. I get that wearing masks doesn't protect me. It's to protect you from me just in case I have it. And this is why, look, I like to think that, to assume that everybody has it, that I have it, right? And so the reason that I like to do that is because it's first me to take the necessary precautions to protect others from me just in case I do have it, and that involves wearing a mask if I go to the grocery store. One of those things. Now, I've chosen not to go to the grocery store, but instead, use like things like Shipt and all that in order to, get somebody to get groceries for me so I don't actually go out into the stores because I don't have a mask, right? And so, yes, I could get a mask quite easily. And if I wanted to go to the store bad enough, I will go get a mask. Otherwise, I prefer to keep others safe by staying indoors. It just makes sense. Not only that, but social distancing, washing my hands, using hand sanitizer, of course, and self-quarantining if I feel like I'm sick. Those are the things that you should actually be doing to protect other people, right? There's nothing unmanly about, protecting your parents and friends, grandparents, and children from getting this very contagious virus that preys on people with compromised immune systems. Healthy people are the shield to protect the weak, and we are not weaker for it. If we get COVID, yeah, we'll survive, But we should really be worried about those who might not, and to prevent them from getting sick by staying home and not being like this guy who revealed himself to be a raging sociopath. Thompson and Knight, of course, immediately moved to fire this guy after learning about this ridiculous rant. They said this in a statement: "This post is a complete violation of the values our firm, including our commitment to the health and safety of the communities we serve. We have terminated this individual's employment and notified the proper authorities about the post as a precaution." So look, do I feel bad about this guy losing his job? No. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over this, right? No. Why? It's because he earned that firing all on his own by doing exactly what he did. I guess it goes back to personal responsibility and, hey, and the fact that if you play stupid games, expect to win stupid prizes. All right. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We've got more stories for you guys today, including farmers. How are they doing? A little bit of a spoiler alert, not so well. Stay right here. We got more stories for you guys after this break. We're going to thank some patrons, read some comments, etc. And, well, we'll see where it goes. So stay right here around the nation. We'll be back in a minute.
Mike Pounds.
Why, you're getting nervous, man.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation with wow. Right, Around the Nation here in TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Whoa, holy crap, too much caffeine. All right, so moving on. Let's watch more stuff. Fun. All right, so I'm going to thank some patrons, patreon.com/TYT Nation. I want to give a shout out to Natalie and Alex. So thank you for signing up and, of course, helping independent progressive media. You guys make the show sustainable. You allow us to continue to be on the air. So thank you very much for signing up. It's patreon.com/TYT Nation. So you can sign up for that. Then we've got channel memberships. We have Helix Chaga and Daniel Tyndall, who are the newest channel members. If you want to help out that way, you can, of course, hit the join button below to become a channel member. Let's see. A couple of comments here. At least there's one that really caught my eye. It's from RB, who says, toxic masculinity refuses to take any type of advice. Toxic masculinity requires a toxic amount of willful ignorance. I don't think that could be explained any better. So thank you, RB, for that. And Eclectic Miscellanea says, I guess the only positive thing about the racist right coming back is if they start wearing those ridiculous KKK outfits. At least it will help them stop spreading COVID-19. You might not have heard, or maybe you have, but there was somebody who literally wore a Klan hood in the store. Not only that, but there are people that I've seen, well, not personally, but in news reports that are wearing face masks with swastikas on them. It's amazing. I mean, it's just, I guess at least they're wearing a mask, but holy crap. In other ways, the masks are falling right off. Insanity. Complete and utter insanity, guys. I mean, it's really, it's hard to believe, but at the same time, it shouldn't be, because this is the direction that this country has been going for quite some time. So it really is. I mean, wow. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to the next story here. Let's talk about farmers. Come on. My sidebar game is on point today. Like, you know. All right. Farmers are becoming increasingly more desperate as it appears the White House has abandoned them in the wake of COVID-19. Now, the coronavirus, of course, has been ravaging its way across the country. Around 80,000 people dead now, over 1 million that are infected. Several bailouts later, and the farmers really haven't gotten a whole lot. In fact, the Washington Post reports that the coronavirus pandemic has wreaked havoc on the $2 trillion food industry, and it's destroying supply chains, leaving farmers worse off than they've ever been before. Now, the problems for the farming industry had existed prior to the coronavirus, and I've talked about this quite a lot, actually. During this trade war that we were having, with China because of Donald Trump, you had farms that were devastated because they could no longer sell a lot of their produce to China. They were a very, very big customer. So now that led, of course, to millions of soybean farmers no longer having anywhere to sell their soybeans, of course, and that because of that, you had farm bankruptcies that increased by nearly 20% in 2019. This is according to recently released data from U.S. courts. Now, the only time it was actually worse, 20%, right? The only time that it was worse is the year following the Great Recession, in which Chapter 12 bankruptcies for farmers rose 30 to 33%. So now you had that problem with China, and now you add in COVID-19. And of course, the reduced demand from COVID-19 as people are starting to hunker down. Restaurants have closed. People aren't really going out to eat anymore. And as a result, you've seen farmers dumping milk, throwing away produce, and euthanizing their own animals. Now, look, I don't know about you guys, right? But this feels like it's a missed opportunity to, give poor people free food, especially as food banks have been slammed with people out of work. In fact, according to the group Feeding America, food banks across the U.S. have reported an increased 40% in demand. Wow, 40%. I'm telling you, man, there's a New York Times article early last month, that pointed all these things out. And reading that, I'm like, this is going to make me even more socialist than I am, to see this happen, because it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to happen. There's no reason why these farmers can't team up with the food banks to give the food banks more food. Look, in fact, there is 2 organizations that have actually proposed doing something like this. This is according to CNN. To 2 organizations, the American Farm Bureau, which represents American agricultural producers, and Feeding America, have proposed a voucher program that would have increased the relationship between farmers and food banks, which would allow them to work more directly with each other. Now, the USDA, and it would involve the USDA, but it would actually cut the bureaucracy and the red tape, make it so that they can work better together, and use a voucher program from the USDA to basically send farm products to food banks. And it would help the farmers and ranchers recoup losses from their lost markets, such as restaurants and tourism businesses shuttered by the pandemic, and also, as I said, help the food banks. I mean, this is a win-win. Now, what has the administration been doing about this? Well, apparently, unfortunately, under the USDA Trump appointee Sonny Perdue, nothing. They have not done anything about this. They have not purchased any food from these farmers to distribute to other people. In fact, they've just been letting this happen as farmers lose money and as people continue to go hungry. I mean, look, instead of doing this, Sonny Perdue does, on defending the meat plants that haven't adequately protected their workers during COVID-19. That has led to, of course, an enormous spike in workers at these meat processing plants getting COVID-19 and having to isolate. So now these farmers, they are desperate. They are hurting without this help. In fact, 43-year-old dairy farmer Scott Glazen of New York said this, quote, "This is the worst I've ever seen it. And I've seen some very bad times." No kidding. Glazen, a 7th-generation dairy farmer, has hoped to turn a profit for the first time in 4 years. But the pandemic has cut milk costs, wiping out much of the demand for dairy, and disrupted transportation and processing. The Missouri-based marketing firm that distributes Glazen and other farmers the marketing firm that distributes Glazen and other farmers told them to start dumping their milk in March, and so now he dumps half or all of his cow's milk on many different days. He said, quote, "It's something you can barely stand to watch. When we see that product going down the drain, it's painful to us." Look, now maybe this is me, right? But saying that product, right? The product. Well, it's not just a product. It's, for some families, it's the difference between life and death, between a full belly and something empty, right? And maybe I'm being totally unfair when he says it hurts me when I see my product go down the drain, because I could have made money on that, right? And so maybe I'm harping on that choice of words too much, but it really kind of bothers me. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. Now, another farmer here, 55-year-old Scott Bluebaugh, who's a cattle rancher and a crop farmer in Oklahoma, he says, look, what we want is we don't want just government handouts. We don't want Donald Trump's, $16 billion handout to the farmers for throwing away half our stuff. No, we want something else. But he also adds, this may be the only way to keep some of these people going for another year. No. You have the government buy the stuff and distribute it to people in need. That's how you get it going. That way, you're not dumping your stuff, right? You're still doing your job. You're still putting out the product, and you're still getting paid for your work. It's just the government is now the buyer and is distributing it to food banks and people in need. Why is this hard? This shouldn't be difficult, but it is. For them, apparently, that's socialism, communism. Can't have that here in America. America will never be a socialist country. Never. Just stop. Stop it now and do something that actually helps. Even if it's dreaded socialism, we can help the farmers and the American people by doing something that makes sense. But they're not doing that. Now, getting back to what Blue Boss says, he says, if Congress does nothing more than what they've done to this point, we will have a very bad crisis in agriculture that will be equal to the 1980s. And I think it could be worse. It could be 1930s level, which we're looking at when it comes to job losses in America. We've got over 30 million people out of work, at near 15% unemployment rate. And it could be damn near 20% if you actually count all the people that haven't been able to get through and the people that are not able to get benefits, even with them being expanded. So come on. All right. Anyway, he says this, quote, we're going to see a mass exodus of farmers and ranchers if they don't do something. We don't want that government check. I think I already said that. But anyway, it's gotten so bad, right, that farmer suicides have increased. In fact, Blue Ball had recently recalled a conversation with one farmer while volunteering for a farmers union suicide hotline. He said, quote, he had the gun loaded and his wife called farm aid. He was crying and just saying, I want out of this. I just want out of this. So you got farmers that are looking to, commit suicide. This is all while Trump and the administration do practically nothing to help these people. Opening up the state economies is not going to increase demand, especially when you have people that are not ready to come out yet. These are people that the majority of Americans that are listening to the science or listening to the scientists and saying, no, we're not going to go to the restaurant. We're not going to go to the movie theater or anything unless we know that we're not going to get a virus and spread it to our families and our loved ones. We're not going to do that. No, I'm still going to stay home as much as possible until the doctors say that it's clear. And right now, when you open it up, you actually make it longer. You make this last longer when you open up the states too early, because then it spreads again and people will continue to be forced to go back inside. And so it's absolutely ridiculous what we're doing. And look, even if people were ready, there's a lot of people that don't have enough money to go and frequent these restaurants. I mean, look, you have millions of people that are unable to get unemployment benefits because of old, unreliable systems. As I mentioned, that 30 million people that are unemployed now. And then you still have some that haven't received their one-time $1,200 coronavirus check. And most, even if they have, it already went to rent. It's gone. There's nothing left. How are you supposed to buy food without money? How are you supposed to stimulate demand if you're broke? The solution is not to reopen right now. No, the solution is to give people their own money in the form of a $2,000 a month UBI. That is the taxpayers' money. Guess what? It should go back to the taxpayer in the form of a UBI stimulus until this crisis is over, until we have returned to pre-coronavirus levels. You know why? Because they'll spend that money, right? Now, as for the farmers, again, they should do the food bank thing. At the very least, the USDA needs to get up off their ass and say, yes, we think that's a great idea. We will give the farmers a voucher, and we will allow them to give that food to food banks that are in desperate need, and we're going to compensate them for it. That is what the government is literally supposed to do in a crisis. It's not a government handout. It's the government actually being effective at doing what they're supposed to do. They're protecting the farmers, and they're ensuring that people get fed until this crisis is over. It's a literal win-win. But we can't do it. Now, one more thing. If we're going to learn anything from this pandemic, I would hope is that we can't go back to the old ways. We can't go back to doing things the way that we used to do it. I mean, and that's what the administration is wanting to do, to get back to the old, right? Farm bailouts, and then depending on the quote unquote markets to correct themselves. Well, the markets correcting themselves literally involves millions of tons of food waste, while millions of people simultaneously go hungry. Does that system make sense to you at all? Does that make sense yet? I mean, what are we doing? I mean, the system was not created to weather a crisis. And in reality, the system is exposed for what it is because of the crisis. There was always more than enough food for the hungry. It's just that capitalism meant that it was better to waste that food, more economical to waste that food, than to give it to hungry people. And that is a disgusting system that we need to replace with something much, much better. Now is the time to do it, because this old system has already fallen apart. All right. Anyway, moving on. If you think I'm done yet, we'll go to another disastrous thing that the Trump administration is doing. All right. Before we get on to that, Alex Roby with a super chat says, "Let's watch more stuff." Possible Trump slogan? Would be. It would be too. All right. Facing the real possibility of actually having to help the ones impacted the most by COVID-19, Republicans have suddenly just concerned themselves with the deficit. This is after sending trillions of dollars of taxpayer money to the banks and corporations in the form of a massive bailout fund. Now, there are discussions about a possible phase 4 stimulus meant to help states and local governments, as well as regular Americans, whose $1,200 stimulus checks are already spent. Those discussions have been happening sporadically on Capitol Hill, but not really amounting to a whole lot. Now, some Republicans are saying, you know what, let's wait and see. We give $3 trillion to the banks and the large corporations. Let's reopen the states and see how that works. Well, I already know how that's going to work. It's going to be an absolute disaster. But okay, they're saying, wait and see. Okay. Now, others are largely protecting their donors, right? And I mean, that's fairly simple, but they all kind of serve the donors. But and others are hatching a plan to use coronavirus as a way to gut federal programs, specifically Social Security. Now, according to Jane Johnson reporting for Common Dreams, the Trump administration officials are reportedly considering several proposals, purportedly aimed at reducing government spending, including a pair of plans that would provide Americans with cash payments in exchange for delays or cuts to their Social Security benefits. In addition to weighing a push for automatic federal spending cuts that would take effect once the economy rebounds from the coronavirus crisis, the Washington Post reported on Sunday that top White House economic officials are, quote, exploring a proposal floated by two conservative scholars, quote unquote, that would allow Americans to choose to receive checks of up to $5,000 for a delay of their Social Security benefits. So now senior administration officials have dubbed that the, quote, Eagle Plan. It's the Eagle Plan. Yay. Does this have something to do with feasting on the carrion of the dead who can no longer retire, who have to work until they die? Eagle Plan. What, you didn't know the eagles were a carrion eater? Apparently. All right. So anyway, this Eagle plan, right, was discussed in a 29-page memo that had called for an overhaul of federal retirement programs in exchange for upfront payments to some workers. The proposal calls for giving Americans $10,000 upfront in exchange for curbing their federal retirement benefits, such as Social Security. Now, you won't be surprised to find out that the Eagle Plan was drafted by a State Department official close to President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. So it wasn't a Kushner plan, but it was somebody close to Kushner who forwarded the proposal to the White House Council of Economic Advisors. You want to know who was in favor of this as well? Art Laffer, the Laffer curve. He's a conservative economist and a Trump advisor. He's like, I totally support this proposal. Oh, yes, give people an advance on their retirement, have them rob their own retirement, basically, to help them through this coronavirus. And then guess what? They don't get to retire. Maybe they'll die before they're able to collect any benefits. Nice. Real nice. Wow. All right. So again, the idea here is you need aid. You need help. The American people, 30 million people are out of work right now, right? These are mainly people that work in low-wage service jobs. They're out of work. They desperately need money. Some of them cannot get unemployment benefits because the systems routinely keep them out. And so in order to help them, because rents and mortgages are not frozen, right? Credit card payments are not frozen. Right now, student loan payments are frozen. At least that's one good thing. But bills still need to get paid. So they're saying, well, you could just borrow against your future, your Social Security benefits in the future. And so instead of retiring at 65, you retire at 72. Oh, you die sooner than that? Sad day for you. I guess we just get to keep all this money. I mean, this is ridiculous. But that's what they're asking you to do. I mean, you got to hand it to them. Republicans never seem to waste a crisis to screw over working people. I mean, they're calling this monstrous idea, as I've mentioned before, the Eagle Plan. Now, Social Security Works, however, tweeted this out, quote, it should be called the Work Till You Die Plan. That's true. And they add, the only reason to support it over simply sending people $2,000 a month is to undermine our Social Security system. Now, that's a reference, of course, to the plan by the Senate Democrats. Now, Senate Democrats Bernie Sanders, Ed Markey, and Kamala Harris have all put forward a plan to send Americans $2,000 a month. Now, this plan, under this plan, Americans who make less than $120,000 a year, so still means tested, would receive a monthly $2,000 coronavirus stimulus check. Married couples would receive $4,000, and an extra $2,000 would be provided for each child with a limit of 3 children. A similar proposal for Americans to receive $2,000 a month was introduced last month by Representative Tim Ryan and Representative Ro Khanna. So that's the Democrats' plan. Understand the difference here. Republicans want you to borrow against your own retirement instead of actually use your money, taxpayer money, to help you in the form of a stimulus, a UBI. While the Democrats, again, want to send you your own money back in the form of a UBI that is not taxable. Gee, I know which one I want to go with. I mean, Republicans are also looking at cutting payroll taxes, right? With Trump especially fond of the payroll tax cut. Now, that doesn't help the 30 million people who are out of work and need cash to pay their bills. Again, a payroll tax cut basically is when you work, you take home a little bit more money because there's less money going to your Social Security retirement fund. So it's not only a way to force people back to work, of course, which a majority of Americans are not yet ready for, but a way to damage Social Security in the long run. So, but understand that in the long run, gutting Social Security and destroying it is the Republican plan. It always has been. Republicans despise the fact that there are people who can retire that get this money, their own money from the government, that private industry cannot put their greedy little paws on. They can't capitalize on that. and it frustrates them deeply. Now, Jeff Stein from Washington Post noted that one page of the state plan says that, quote, this is an opportunity to rethink Social Security. Again, because that's the plan. It adds, if you want to grow a tree, is it better to water it early in life or at the end of life, or maybe a little bit of both? Our economy might work the same way. They're literally, though, trying to water the economy by taking people's Social Security, by making you borrow against yourself in the future. You don't know what's going to happen. Now, there's another problem here, right? It's the fact that a lot of people are going to be required to have Social Security because they can't retire otherwise. That's why it's a work till you die plan. Remember, pay is so low right now and expenses are so high. Very few young people, especially in the millennial generation, we're now in our 30s and 40s, right? We don't have any money to save to retirement. We just don't. We haven't had the money to save for retirement. And now you have a global pandemic, which if you actually had savings, you no longer have it because you've been forced to dip into those savings in order to weather this financial storm. So really, that entire thing compounds this even worse. Now, that said, the Social Security cuts were floated by congressional Republicans, right? Trump himself says, I'm not in favor of the Eagle plan. In fact, Hogan Gidley, a White House spokesperson, says that Trump described this as a ludicrous on its face idea. However, the Post reported the president hasn't actually read the proposal. Because, of course, we all know the president doesn't read. So, of course, he didn't review the proposal. But here's the thing. Donald Trump's running for re-election, right? He's not going to come out for Social Security cuts. Not openly. No. He's going to say what he did the first time. Oh, I'm going to protect Social Security and Medicare. Those are going to be fine. In fact, they're tremendous programs. I'm going to keep it for you lovely seniors. No, how Republicans always say, we're going to keep it for the lovely seniors, the people that vote for us more often. But down the road for everybody else, we're going to have to make some cuts and some quote unquote adjustments, right? We're going to fix and save Social Security, except that they're not, right? Except that they're not. But look, the Republicans are starting to lose the senior vote over coronavirus, over this disastrous response to it, and his disastrous response to basically everything. So Trump's going to come out. He's going to say Social Security cuts are off the table. That is a lie. He has proposed in his annual budget blueprints, written with congressional Republicans, that they need to slash both programs, Medicare and Social Security. So, yeah. Not only that, but Trump himself, during an interview at the World Economic Forum in Davos back in January, said that he would consider cuts to Social Security and Medicare if he was reelected in November. Donald Trump is a snake. We all know he's a snake. And make no mistake, the Republicans are going to join him in going after Social Security. And they're using a global crisis where tens of millions of Americans are hurting in order to destroy the social safety net instead of helping them. And that, my friends, is beyond gross. And we should never let them forget it, especially at the ballot box. These ghouls, these cretins, should never be allowed to win another election ever again. All right. Fairly clear on that. All right, one more. The Trump administration is continuing to dismantle environmental protections even as COVID-19 has frozen the economy. Now, in fact, federal agencies so far have eased fuel efficiency standards for new cars, frozen rules for soot air pollution, proposed to drop review requirements for liquefied natural gas terminals, continued to lease public property to oil and gas companies, sought to speed up permitting for offshore fish farms and advanced a proposal on mercury pollution from power plants that can make it easier for the government to conclude that regulations are too costly to justify their benefits, even if some of these regulations are actually opposed by the industry themselves. I'm sorry, the efforts to deregulate are opposed by the industry themselves. Now, the government has also relaxed reporting rules for polluters during this pandemic. This is what they're trying to do, right? So as people are distracted, as people are suffering, big polluters are actually getting a win. By the way, air pollution is one of the reasons many people suffer from asthma right now. Those people then go on to be more susceptible to respiratory viruses like pneumonia and, yes, COVID-19. So keep that in mind, right? So now the Trump administration is doing this, of course, to help their corporate donors, and they're doing it in two different ways. They're rescinding and rewriting some rules and writing others in ways that could be difficult to rescind later on. Say if a Democratic president or a progressive president gets into office and tries to actually do something about the environment, they have these rules written in such a way which are very, very difficult to change or get rid of. One example, of course, is putting in a fairly weak rule, right? Using the EPA to put in a weak rule, and then using that as justification from a rules perspective or a regulatory perspective, preventing them from putting in a stronger rule in its place. So, I mean, it's just many of the tricky ways Republicans, conservatives attempt to prevent any sort of rigorous regulation of these industries. Not only that, but you have oil bailouts as well, or fossil fuel bailouts, which we've already seen about $75 million in aid money going to these corporations. Now, both former Democrats and Republicans turned lobbyists are trying to reopen the country in order to get that demand back up since their donors have lost money. There's recordings, of course, of them meeting with JP Morgan. It's a meeting between JP Morgan Chase and Aiken Gump, or is it Morgan Stanley? Sorry, it's Morgan Stanley and Aiken Gump, which is, of course, the primary lobbying firm that represents oil companies. They're people that they had in Congress. Former congressmen are now lobbyists on both sides. And now they will be sent back to lobby in favor, of course, of reopening the country too early in order to get oil prices back up. So, look, whatever goodies Trump is going to give the oil industry before the election might even be defended by some Democrats in Congress who have been lobbied by their buddies, by their friends. But understand that Republicans, of course, have been going after regulations. They were going after it before, but now under the shadow of COVID-19, they're doing so, more openly because they get this cover in the news. Now, they should be helping people, but instead, they're helping their donors, their friends in big oil. And so, look, we've got the news that's dominated by, the mounting death toll, right? 80,000 people have died from coronavirus. That's in America alone. Who's going to notice a few $100 million going to the fossil fuel industry while that's happening? Exactly. That's what they're literally banking on. You not noticing that you're being robbed. They're taking money that could help you and your family, taxpayer money, and they're handing off to corporations that don't actually need it, and also deregulating to make the air more unhealthy so that when things open up, when people do get back to work, look, we've seen in China, as soon as they started reopening, here comes that smog right back. Instead of helping big oil and these corporations, we should be stripping them of subsidies and using them to launch a new green energy program, like a Green New Deal, so that the new normal will actually involve less air pollution and less reliance on the world oil markets and more renewable energy produced domestically from solar, wind, and geothermal sources. We can actually do that. It's just whether or not we have the political will to do so. All right. That's all I got for stories today. I want to read a couple of super chats before we go. Dango Bango says, we're in an assault death spiral. That's not a good place to be. And name withheld says, I can get a mortgage hold, but they all want it paid all at once. If I hold it for 3 months, they want all of it paid back as soon as possible. And so, yeah, that doesn't help homeowners. No, you have to do an actual freeze. You've got to freeze the mortgages, and that's it. Or have the federal government go in and pay your mortgage using federal money for you. What I don't understand is how we can actually bail out the banks who hold these mortgages and give them trillions of dollars, and they can't say, you know what, we're going to suspend mortgages for so long and have you not have to pay on that balance for 6 months. Our little gift, because we got bailed out the banks, so we're going to bail you out. But instead, what do? They funnel that money to the shareholders and to their executives, because of course they do. That's how this works. And it's really disgusting that all of our elected officials, or nearly all of our elected officials, have taken this crisis and have used it solely to enrich their friends, the donors, and the wealthy. I mean, but that's unfortunately America in a nutshell. All right. One more thing. I did see a comment in the chat here of somebody who plays Final Fantasy 14. I also play it, and I do sometimes stream it. So check it out. That's on my Twitch, Twitch TV, Jeff Waldorf. So check that out when I play. All right. Thank you, guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later. You have a great day. Please clap.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.